Hi guys, welcome to the show. So this comes out of Hedgeye, and what they posted is a total net worth held by the top 1%. And look at this incline. You can see it has gone completely parabolic, while the total net worth held by the bottom 50% has had this slow and dreary drop off and climb back up, right? And look at 2008. We dropped and we slowly came all the way to the bottom by 2013, let's say, and then we had this slow incline. Then we get up to March 2020, and this is where we see a big drop, a big jump up, is because of stimulus checks, right? The whole idea of stimulus checks, that's where a lot of the wealth came from in the bottom 50%. And this is the top 1%. Now, what does the top 1% own? They own mostly assets, right? So this whole entire thing is because the wealthy own assets. Well, we have to work and our wages stay the same while the wealthy own the assets and they benefit from the Fed printing money. Now, we follow the law of averages. If you ever read anything about technical analysis, everything always follows the law of averages. And you can see that we've had these massive inclines and these massive drops, but if you were to draw a line, it relatively follows a line. There's like this pump and dump type of way about it, and it follows a line. We're way overextended. If there was an average price here, this is way overextended, and the Fed's whole goal is to bring it back down to the average. Now, when that happens, look at this little blip here, this little drop here. Look what happened to the bottom 50%. We got completely crushed, my family including, and that's the reason why I am the way I am. I obsess over markets because I watched my family lose everything, right? 2012, we were forced to sell everything, all of the assets that we owned. So really, I'm this way because I'm trying to save my family that was back here, right? So that's kind of the reason why I'm obsessed with everything. Well, if you're following this channel, at least we know this, because back here I didn't know this. We were just blind. We were just living our lives, working hard. We thought hard work paid off, and that's the way to life. You just had to work really hard and everything will happen. Nope, that's not true. You need to know how the markets work. And you need to know how the Fed works specifically, because the Fed is about to bring this back down to its average, which is going to crush this number. And it's going to take a very long time for this gradually to increase. But this, on the other hand, once this waterfall starts, the Fed is going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at it to try to stop it, because it can't be stopped once it starts going. It takes a great deal to actually stop it. Look at March 2020 here. And this was really just a blip. Look how high we are now. Watch what happens when this comes down. Now, second piece of information comes from James Wallis. This is OMFIF DMI. This is a DMI Symposium 2023. OMFIF is a think tank. Listen to what he has to say.
And why is that important? That's because that's what trade is based upon, right? You need that to be able to trade, and the more efficiently you can trade, if you get paid faster, you get paid 100% of what you're owed, not some haircuts along the way or fees. That's good for the economy of the receiving country. It's good for the companies or the individuals that are working in those countries as well. So that's really, I think, our perspective. It's a bit complicated, right? There's not a simple magic answer. And I don't think there's going to be, the end game is a long way off, because if you think about it, to get everyone being able to transact cross-border in this very efficient way, that requires everyone to be at a certain level of development. Yep. So I foresee that for at least the next 5 years, maybe the next 10 years, you're going to have countries that have a CBDC trading with countries that don't have a CBDC. So then you have to accommodate fiat to CBDC. You're going to have various, tokenized deposits and stable coins in the mix. I think they will all coexist. So you can't just plan for the utopia, right? You have to figure out how do you get there, these steps along the way? And
So you can't just plan for the utopia, right? It's going to take a unified ledger to kind of bring all of this together. If you have a CBDC, RTGS system, you have stable coins, you have all these different assets, they don't just natively talk to each other. Something like the XRP ledger, you can mint IOUs right onto the ledger that represents a CBDC, right? So there's really one ledger that can just bring all of this together, specifically with cross-border payments, and that's what the XRP ledger is best suited for. So Palantir dumps 50 million in gold investments less than 2 years after buying precious metals. So they ended up buying treasuries. Why? Because treasuries have a significant yield now. Since the Fed has been fighting inflation, they've moved their gold position into treasuries. Now, if you're not paying attention, look at corn, look at wheat, look at a lot of the commodity prices like nat gas. The commodity market is telling you something, and it told you something when inflation first started. You notice all the commodities shot up. All commodities started going on to a bull run. Well, now the opposite is true. They're in epic bear market, specifically nat gas. Now, gold is in relationship with all the other commodities. That's where gold gets its price from. You can always buy a certain amount of wheat with it, or oil, or whatever. So all these commodities deflating tells you there is a storm of deflation headed towards the traditional equities and other markets. Now, this comes from my site, dmjr.ghost.io. So this is like my Patreon. I duplicate all my information, but if you don't want to use Patreon, I know a lot of people have problems with Patreon. That's why I set up this Ghost site. And this accepts Stripe. So I put a lot of information up here for just as little as $5. I have to pay for the hosting. I have to pay for a lot of stuff. This helps my channel out. So for as little as $5, I post a lot of information here. One of the things I posted was the Coinbase earnings report. Now listen to this.
With Ripple and the XRP, case, do you think that will have any precedent, or how will that will that provide any clarity on the regulatory front? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I can just. Sorry.
Yeah, Paul, I'll share a quick thought and then turn it over to you. I mean, on the timing of legislation, obviously we can't predict anything like that exactly, but and I don't want to reveal something sensitive that may be being worked on over there, but. There are various parties that have a real motivation to help get that clear rule book in the U.S. through new legislation, and we're certainly supportive of seeing that happen. Paul, go ahead and jump in.
Just want to underscore that, as you pointed out earlier, Brian, we're seeing draft legislation not only here in the United States coming together largely on a bipartisan basis and hopefully moving forward in the coming quarter. But also outside the United States, we're seeing the UK and other jurisdictions move on and move ahead with their own legislative proposals and initiatives. So while no timeline is certain, it certainly appears that we're seeing progress in legislation, not just in the United States, but in jurisdictions all over the world.
Different jurisdictions. Those different jurisdictions, it looks like Coinbase is moving to Bermuda. They're opening up different exchanges across the globe. They very well could relist XRP in those exchanges. Now, this is on John Deaton's channel. This is Paul Grewell, and there was a picture of Paul with Stu Alderati from Ripple. Jeremy Hogan was joking and saying, they're not technically allowed to talk about the case, but I'm sure some information slipped through. Now listen to what Paul has to say.
I want to assure you and assure all your followers is that this is not a decision that is set in stone. And once the courts issue sufficient clarity in the form of a ruling or a decision, we will not hesitate to revisit that issue.
Well, everybody knows by now that I'm not an XRP maximalist. I'm not.
So what he's saying is if we get clarity. Coinbase is neutral on the issue. They're going to relist it. That's just whatever the judge says is that they're going to relist whatever the outcome may be. Now, Elon Musk writes, WhatsApp cannot be trusted. And here's a screenshot of WhatsApp accessing somebody's microphone every couple of minutes. Now, this is why I work with the XX network. On Friday, me, Solomon, David Chom, as well as the CEO of Panther Protocol, the Lydian Foundation, Mark Hewitt, the CEO of Findora, are all going to get together onto a Twitter space and discuss what's going on in the regulatory scene, what's going on with privacy data. These are a lot of fun. I invite everyone to stop in and listen to the live conversation and ask questions. They're usually very educational and entertaining. Now, Eleanor Terrett, but let me give this disclaimer before I say anything. A lot of people, tell me they've unsubscribed to me because I've brought up politics in the past. Some things I have to talk about because it relates to crypto. And what Eleanor says in this is there was a memo that was being leaked around by Democrats that said it contained a message that says to stick to including supporting the SEC's total authority over crypto regulations. It's assertion that nearly all crypto constitutes securities and that crypto's problem isn't ambiguity, it's mass non-compliance. So this memo was leaked out, and it looks like the Democrats were purposely pushing this narrative that crypto is just non-compliant security. So if everything was under the SEC's jurisdiction, all of the innovation goes away. All the things that you can do with the XRP ledger, sure, you can invest in coins, but you can't do anything with the ledgers anymore, right? And that's what I think a lot of the government wants. They want complete control over this. You need a special license in order to work on crypto or to do anything with crypto, which I don't think is a good thing. Now, the light shines in darkness. If you don't follow Matthew LNI, I suggest you do. He tweeted out the UAE Crypto Oasis May 2023 report, and it talks about some of the different projects. I've read this report. It's pretty interesting. I mean, just pretty much an overview, but there's some projects that I'm interested in, and I'll put this in the description below. The next piece of information comes from Mary C. Hall, and this is James Wallis at the conference that we watched to begin with. Now, what I wanted to say about this is a think tank. Omphif is a think tank. These are some very influential people that Ripple's right next to. So this is the list of people that were at this conference that they're talking with, right? The Bank of Israel, Bank of Ghana, MIT, Goldman Sachs, People's Bank of China, the Bank of Italy, RTGS Global Limited, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, Malaysia, Deutsche Bank, Ripple again. So 2 people from Ripple are there. Brazil, the Bank de France, Temamesk, Saudi Central Bank, the Bank of Thailand, the Swiss National Bank, the US SEC, Clifford Chance, Onyx, so JP Morgan's Onyx, right? The supposed competition to Ripple. Carolyn Wilkins from the Bank of England. I believe she's from the Bank of Canada. I believe this is a misprint here. But, Ripple's right alongside with all of these people. They're creating a product to move money in a regulated way. I mean, imagine the type of customers that Ripple acquires from something like this. And, there's no other crypto company that does stuff like this. So you don't see Uniswap here, right? Like, that doesn't exist. You see Ripple here. And they're positioning the XRP ledger to do exactly what I was telling you about earlier. You have CBDCs, you have stable coins, you have fiat, you have all these various different assets. You just issue an IOU on the XRP ledger. It's a placeholder for what exists in the bank or wherever it exists, and now it moves as fast as the XRP moves. And that's the utility that's going to be brought to the financial system. Now, last but not least, Jed McCaleb lists that he works for VAST. VAST is building artificial gravity space stations to expand humanity across the solar system. Hiring. Now, the reason why I bring this up, right, is he's one of the original Ripple founders. He's one of the co-founders of Stellar, and he's a very plugged-in guy, right? He's plugged into the Fed. He was plugged into Mt. Gox. He was he had a ton. He's one of the richest people in the world. And space is supposed to be like this new frontier of warfare, and like that's why SpaceX, there's so much money that was pumped into SpaceX, is because that's really the U.S. government trying to innovate to get a head start over China and other countries, because whoever has the high ground of space is going to have a huge military edge over the rest of the world. So here's Jed McCaleb starting to work in space as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon. Remember to hit the bell.